Here's a little secret. No one is good at everything. And when it comes to developing yourself, that means focusing on your weaknesses is a waste of time. Instead, you should focus on what you're already good at. Let me explain why. Hello and welcome to this channel. It's my mission to help you become the best version of yourself. And to do that, we need to talk about something very important: your strengths and weaknesses. If you watched my last video, then you know that according to science, we have 3 layers of self: the person you are, the person you want to be, and the person you could be with the right mindset, actions, and environment. You can transform yourself into the person you want to be and reach your full potential as the person you could be. But in order to get there, you need to first understand your starting point, where you currently are, the person you are. To find out who you are, you need to know both your strengths and weaknesses. To find out who you want to be, you can look up to people you admire or use an ideal self-exercise like the one I did in my last video. And to find out who you could be, you can learn from others by observing their skills and abilities. These exercises will show you where the gaps are between who you are and who you want to be, as well as who you are and who you could be. This gives you direction of where to focus your efforts. But here's where things get interesting. In a study done by Dr. May Peterson of the University of Toronto, he found that focusing on our weaknesses leads to worse performance than focusing on our strengths. In other words, don't focus on improving your weaknesses. Instead, double down on what you're already good at and let your strengths carry you. Let's take a closer look at these 2 methods of improvement. If you want to improve your weaknesses, you need to put in extra effort. You need to be aware of your weakness. You need to identify situations where your weakness will be triggered. You need to prepare yourself mentally for the situation. You need to pull through the situation. And finally, you need to reflect on what went well and what didn't. All of this takes extra effort. On the other hand, if you want to improve your strengths, you still need to be aware of your strength. You still need to identify situations where your strength will be useful. You still need to prepare yourself mentally for the situation. You still need to pull through the situation, but you won't have to work as hard because you're already good at it. And finally, you still need to reflect on what went well and what didn't. But the reflection will be easier because it went well overall. As you can see, the process is similar for both, but the main difference is that you have to work harder when improving your weaknesses because you already starting from a lower point. This means you'll get a smaller reward for the same amount of effort compared to improving your strengths. Or in other words, you'll get more reward for less effort if you improve your strengths. This doesn't mean you shouldn't ever work on your weaknesses. It just means you shouldn't spend as much time on them as you spend on your strengths. For example, let's say you want to become a better writer. If you're bad at grammar, it would make sense to spend more time learning grammar. But if you're good at grammar already, it would be a waste of time to keep learning more grammar. Instead, you should learn new ways to write better and more persuasively. I'm sure you've experienced this before. When you're trying to learn something new, it's easier to learn the basic fundamentals of a skill, but it gets progressively harder as you get better and better. For example, learning the basics of playing a guitar is easy, but learning advanced techniques is not so easy. Learning the basics of cooking is easy, but learning gourmet recipes is not so easy. Learning the basics of fixing a computer is easy, but getting a PhD in computer science is not so easy. So remember, focus on what you're already good at. That's where you should put most of your energy. Of course, you should still be aware of your weaknesses and try to avoid situations where your weaknesses will be triggered. But if you're faced with those situations anyway, don't be afraid to put in extra effort. Just remember that the effort you put in will yield less results than if you were working on your strengths. Another great benefit of focusing on your strengths is that you'll enjoy what you're doing more. According to a study done by Dr. Sonia Lubomirsky, when we focus on our strengths, we experience more positive emotions such as happiness, interest, excitement, pride, and satisfaction. On the other hand, when we focus on our weaknesses, we experience more negative emotions such as shame, frustration, boredom, discouragement, and guilt. In other words, you feel good about yourself when you focus on your strengths, and you feel bad about yourself when you focus on your weaknesses. Who wants to feel bad about themselves? Not me. So focus on your strengths. Here are some ways to focus on your strengths. First, make a list of your strengths. You can do this by asking others what they think your strengths are, or by looking back at times when you felt proud of yourself. What were you doing? Second, make a list of tasks you need to complete. Third, try to match your strengths with tasks. If you have more tasks than strengths, that's fine. Try to match as many as you can. And if you have more strengths than tasks, choose the ones that are most important to you. Fourth, reflect on how good it felt to use your strengths and reward yourself for doing so. This will help you look forward to using your strengths in the future. Now, here are some things to keep in mind. First, don't compare yourself to others. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. What matters is that you find what works for you. Second, don't be afraid to change your mind. If you realize that something isn't working for you, change it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Find what works for you. Third, don't give up. It takes time to find what works for you, but don't give up. Keep trying, and eventually you'll find it. Remember, you are already good at many things, even if you don't think you are. You just need to be aware of your strengths and focus on them. Don't waste your time trying to improve your weaknesses all the time. Instead, save that effort for when you really need it. So, what are some strengths you have? Let me know in the comments below. I always appreciate hearing from you guys. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe and share this video with someone who needs it. As usual, all references used are in the description below. Until next time, thanks for watching, and remember, you matter.